We don't want to be shaped by the agenda of the world, whether that's a Fox News agenda or a CNN agenda. I do not mean that we embrace some kind of revisionist approach to history like the 1619 Project, or adopt CRT approaches to politics or education. Those approaches are often as worldly and problematic as what they're trying to correct. Critical race theory is wrong. Our cultural preferences, hear me, they're not wrong. And no one should ever tell you they're wrong. And anybody that's ever told you that, if you've interpreted something I have said that means that, I was not telling you correctly. It's not wrong. The loss of religious liberties in this country or the killing of unborn life, those are not white evangelical concerns. Those are people concerns. Those are Christian concerns. The gospel is not about a social program that we live out. Ethnic unity is not the gospel. We're not simply after a diversity quota here. The point is not us achieving an ethnically diverse audience or having the right color faces up here on stage. For a few years now, we have said that our goal as a church, we say 25 by 25, as in we would like for our congregation to be 25% ethnically diverse, at least 25% ethnically diverse by 2025. If we achieve that goal, that will mean we're reaching all the types of people that God has brought to our community and not just one slice of them. Now, I know for some of you, just talking about this raises questions, well-intended questions, I believe. Questions like, well, is this similar to some worldly quota strategy like we went through at my previous job, where this was kind of, forced on everybody? It is significant that right now, about 20%, a little above 20% of our staff, 46 people to be exact on our staff, are people of color. Those that are serving in the senior director levels, that's doubled over the last 3 years to about 25%. 3 of the 5 lay directional elders are people of color. More than half of our campus pastors are people of color. Y'all, that moves us closer to that 25% goal by 2025. By the way, that number's not arbitrary either, because they say 20% is when a minority starts to feel like their voice is heard, that they're not just guests at a white church, that their influence is felt, and the first-time guests who are minorities don't feel out of place. This is getting us closer to that goal we believe God has given us of being a representation of the gospel in this area.
Some would say that race is America's original sin. There's been some back and forth on that, and I'm not here to necessarily affirm or deny that statement. What I'm offering to you is not a liberal agenda. I'm not offering you any kind of ideological or political agenda. That stuff is impotent to move the needle. And then we live in an age of cancel culture, which means you don't feel the freedom to push back or to ask the question, so you just kind of button up and keep quiet. I'm going, that's not the way to unity. Like if you followed my wife and I around for 6 months and you want to know, do we have a great marriage? And all you saw was me articulating my opinion, and she never articulates hers, and I'm the one who's saying it all the time, and she just kind of buttons up. You wouldn't go healthy marriage. You wouldn't go unified. Well, unfortunately, in our day, with these kinds of conversations, because of this thing of white guilt, there's this silence among our white siblings and kind of the oppressed and the minorities. We're the only ones articulating positions, and I'm like, that's not unity. Unity means I feel so loved and safe with you that I'm willing to express a variant viewpoint. Some of the most damaging people in the Church of Jesus Christ are those who are just so fixated on ethnic unity that unfortunately, ethnic unity has become ethnic idolatry because it has become bigger than the gospel. This text isn't ultimately about diversity. If it was, that's no different than a New York City subway car. Pastor JD say last week, 25 by 2025. Why do we get up and say that? Some of you all, you're asking great questions. Brian, look, that feels like a quota. I work in the marketplace, man. I might get phased out of my job because of the diversity quota. Is that what Summit is doing? No, it's not. Look, I don't think every church should be multi-ethnic. If you're trying to be multi-ethnic in Compton, God bless you. I do think every church should look like its mission field. If your mission field is diverse, but your church is filled with people who look like you, act like you, think like you, and vote like you, something in you should go, we're off.
I want to emphasize here, ethnic unity does not require us divesting ourselves of our ethnicity or trying to kind of achieve some one big monoculture. That would be both unnatural and unbiblical.
So many of my black pastor friends have said to me over the years in so many words, when are you going to come home? And I have to stop and ask them, what is home? Home is not a skin color. Home is the gospel of Jesus Christ.
So in the one area, you got color blindness. The other error on the other side is what we call color idolatry. And that's where our ethnicity becomes the most defining thing about us.
There's this false ideology floating around in our culture, and that is this ideology that attempts to see everything through an oppressor binary. Some people, maybe minorities like myself in a fallen world, we might be tempted to kind of relegate our identity to this sense of oppression or victimhood. That I'm not defined anymore by Jesus, I'm defined by what's been historically done to me. This is out of step with the gospel. Conversely, there could be those in the majority culture who would define themselves maybe historically by what their ancestors did to a certain group of people. I appreciate the contrition, but this too, if that's your identity, is out of step with the gospel. In fact, Sarah Shin would go on to say, I'm not defined by my scars, but by his scars. Jesus who died on the cross for me.
This whole thing is not about getting a bunch of different colored people in a room for a photo op. And I want you to actually lock arms here. Right here. We're going to get a few other worship leaders, so this is not a photo op that people put up. And here's what we're going to do, Summit. Yeah, just go across the aisles. Go across the aisles. Let's just join. As much as we can make it like one body here.